right, I am going to introduce both of our speakers at the same time and turn the show over to them. One of our speakers is going to be John Moffett. He is a native Tucsonan and graduate of Catalina High and the University of Arizona. He has his MBA and PhD in Education Administration and Computer Science. John's current role is conceptual development of the aerospace, defense, and technology business and the research park. Critical components of the assignment include identifying assets and benefits available based on location and opportunities driven by airport proximity. The scope of his project, and that project, encompasses development of a master plan to create the Sonoran corridor between I-19 and I-10 at Rita Road. Also, we have with us Jane Porter, who is currently CEO of Worldview Enterprises, Inc. And right now we are negotiating a group discount, so our group can have a quarterly meeting in 2 or 3 years in one of the space capsules. That would be interesting. Worldview will also, that project will provide new opportunities for both research and educational pursuits. Jane was founder of Paragon Space Development Corporation, which develops technologies for extreme environments like outer space and underwater. Some of us in this group have been underwater several times, and we'll learn how to survive better. While inside the Biosphere 2, she co-founded the firm with fellow biospherian Tabor McCullen, which she later married. In 2009, the National Association of Female Executives awarded Jane with its Entrepreneur of the Year award. She is also named co-inventor on a patented experiment, patented experiment, self-sustaining habitats flown on the International Space Station, the Russian Mir Space Station, and the U.S. Space Shuttle. Please welcome both Jane and John.
What we've been working on in Pima County and other partners in the region is taking advantage of our location and developing the area primarily south of the airport, where we're uniquely positioned. We've got a GDP of $4.7 trillion. And most of this trade that goes back and forth between California and Texas and Mexico coming out of there comes through Tucson. So we're trying to position take advantage of our location and use multimodal, tie in the airport, rail, surface. You'll see one of the rail things we're working on. But the other thing that's happening is, the Mariposa Port of Entry has now been completed. If we could get it staffed, it would work really well. It's still short on staffing. But the Port of Guaymas is being expanded. Now, they're doing the bulk port now, but there's a container port in the plans, near-term plans. That will generate a lot more container traffic, both out of South America and both import and export. So we're working with TIA on their expansion with their second runway, and we're working with Raytheon to expand some of the areas south of there. And the Port of Tucson just had an announcement last week where they got what we call a high-speed off-ramp on the main east-west Sunset line from Union Pacific. So from a logistics standpoint, we're really positioning this area to take advantage of our location. This is a map that was actually put together by the real estate industry in coordination with TRIO at that point, Sun Corridor Inc. Now. And what we did is we actually we're working on getting an inventory, but the issue that we were running into is that we didn't have infrastructure in a lot of these areas where we had large land tracts, but we had folks coming in needing 100, 200, 500, 1,000 acres. So we sat down with Sun Corridor and brought the utilities in, and the utilities said, well, you got to tell us where things are going, which is what we attempted to do with this. What you see on this map, the bright green areas, but down around the airport, south of the airport, there's large pieces. The airport's got 6,000 or 7,000 acres. some of which can be developed, some of which is in the flight path. But that area down around Sahuarita, what we call the Tech Corridor, between the Tech Park and the Port of Tucson, and then up around Marana. So what we did is we met with the utilities and asked them to start putting some plans in place. They're unwilling to spend a lot of money going to every person, each individual property, but that's our goal, is to at least have a plan when we're talking to a prospect and be able to say, we can get power, this much water to this site within X months. So this has been a very useful map. The Sonoran Corridor is kind of an embodiment of, this is a regional approach, that we've been trying to get a connection between I-19 and I-10 for 30-plus years. There have been actually 30-plus attempts. We have a map that's looks like a spaghetti map that shows all the different routes that have been tried, all of which didn't succeed for various reasons. So what we did is we were trying to get, our initial thought was to tie the two employment centers at the Tech Park and the airport together with an east-west route. And that was on the bonds, the $30 million bond issue, which would have built a county road between those two locations along Old Vale Connection. That bond failed, as you know, but the region actually came right back immediately and said, no, we can't let this go. So PAG stepped up their funding, a Tier 1 EIS, ADOT and Federal Highway Administration are going to do that EIS this summer, beginning this summer. Unfortunately, I'm going to be lobbying tomorrow with the State Transportation Board, but it's a 3-year EIS. And we're anxious to get that brought back down. But essentially, this route connects from I-10 at just north of the casino, comes across the Santa Vera Indian Reservation, and then east and then north along the Alvernon alignment, and then, north along the Alvernon alignment and then east along Old Vale Connection. That's a notional route. It's a concept at this point. When the ADOT finishes their study, they'll finalize a route. Our goal was to tie in Sahuarita to the access to the airport, create a southern entrance to the airport, but also then get the two tied, the Tech Park and the airport employment centers tied together. So that's this whole area. As you can see, the blue on this screen is all state land. So we're meeting regularly with state land. We're pretty much landlocked down in here, but they are starting to work with us on, number one, providing, not for free, they never do, but giving us access for right-of-way, so we can start opening up this area. And as I don't need to tell you what opening up land that can't be accessed does. So their values will increase. So there are a number of players. The airport's a major player, but this is moving forward quickly. The study that's being done for the Sonoran Corridor by ADOT started out with this, what I call a blob. And they look at a general area and then pick 3 potential routes and then study those in more depth. Sahuarita made a request, and I didn't get the map until too late last night, but that blob has been modified to go down to Duval Mine Road in the Sahuarita area. So that's where ADOT will be doing their study to connect between I-19 and I-10. We did a notional land use concept plan. We worked with the Planning Center and Sun Corridor. We actually took specific demands where we had companies come in from various places that had different demands for heavy, medium, and light industrial, some service type thing, and they put this concept together. We then had Applied Economics, who does a number of the economic impact studies for Sun Corridor, evaluate this based on real data that Sun Corridor had. And you can see across the bottom, they came back with, once this area is built out, $32 billion of annual impact, 203,000 direct and indirect jobs, and a direct payroll of $9.3 billion. So we see Tucson growing a couple of ways. It's going to go out to the west along 86, but this is the area where we're trying to get jobs in this industrial area around the airport, and then let Vail, Sahuarita, and some of the other, the yellow that you see in here is in some case planned, in other cases notional residential. But our concept, again, is to get the jobs in the core and then have people be able to have a reasonable commute to those jobs. There's a project underway. I'm working with Steve Cole and a number at the airport to create an expansion and a buffer space for Raytheon. The reason we lost the Standard Missile 3 project was mainly space. There was not, when they assemble missiles, it's not just in a room like this. They have to, because they have explosives, they have to have roughly 1,200 to 1,400 foot radius arcs around them of nothing. So that takes up a lot of real estate, and they didn't have it here. So we have already relocated the Hughes Access Road. That opens up about 450 acres that Raytheon could then use to expand in. There's a project underway right now. The airport is expanding their second major runway. There's a land swap, and this is the map for this land swap that works on all of that. Additionally, Raytheon is going to create a brand new entrance on the south end in this area here where this little green box is. And that'll be partially on airport land and partially on county land. But they'll have a visitor center and that sort of thing. And then the other thing that we're looking at from a future standpoint is the Air Guard is extremely critical to the airport. About 35 to 40% of the operations at the airport are Air Guard related. So we need to make sure they remain viable there. Also, in order to get their next mission, they need a place for their munition storage. Right now it's on the base. They need a place to put a new simulator and things like that. So as a part of this master plan, we've created this area down here for the Air Guard to store their munitions and access them from on field. This is the, now we're drilling down here. We're getting down to the business park that the county bought. The county bought this land primarily to protect against encroachment on Raytheon. Just north of this is where Raytheon does all their guidance system testing. And that's the real key, and that's why Raytheon's so successful, is we cannot impede that. So we bought this as a buffer, and then we are developing it in conjunction with Raytheon's approval on how buildings sit, what the angle is, how tall they are, all those kinds of things. They concurred completely with the Worldview project, and we're happy to have that going on. Now, what we're doing is we're working at a joint utility trench across Aerospace Parkway. Lowered everybody's cost, actually saved almost $500,000. All the utilities are going to be there. Tucson Water is going to build, right now the well fields and the recharge area for Tucson Water south down by Pima Mine Road and comes north along the Nogales Highway. They're going to intercept that water, put in a cleaning facility in this location, and the primary goal is to create good, clean water for industrial applications out in this, not just on the county section of land, but also in this whole region. So we're starting to get the utilities in place. TEP is a part of the relocation of the Aerospace Parkway, and Hughes Access Road is relocating two 46 kV power lines. So there's plenty of power down in this area. And then we're creating a regional utility corridor, same concept. We're creating lanes. Here's where gas is, here's where water, those kind of things. Plus, we got a Western Area Power Authority power line, 2 TEP lines, and a railroad to fit into this area. So we're master planning that to make sure that all works. That's underway. Our wastewater folks are leading that project. The other thing is you'll see railroad along the bottom. We expect to serve, and UP is coordinating and cooperating on this. We'll be serving this whole area with rail. We've got a little siding part identified here, but there's also a plan in the works. UP is now on board for this to relocate and reroute the Nogales line. Right now, the Nogales line comes up past the airport, up through South Tucson and right through the middle of town. Crosses 18 streets, 307,000 cars a day. Because the trains coming out of out of Mexico are getting longer and heavier, and they have to go slower, so it means more delays and that sort of thing. So we're looking at moving this line to where it would turn and go east along this same corridor, tie in behind the Target.com building into the Sunset Line. So that will open up freight and rail as well as multimodal air and that sort of thing across that whole region. Now we get down to the fun stuff. We were delighted to be able to retain Worldview here, and we created what we call Spaceport Tucson together. It's consistent with the goals of our park. It meets the FAA requirements. We made sure and they've been very good about doing that. But it also met Raytheon's requirements. In fact, Raytheon liked it so well they're working with Worldview right now to work on some of these projects. It'll be a county-owned facility. It'll be operated by Worldview under contract. ADOT is going to fund a good chunk of this out of their aviation fund, which is a nice economic development input from the state. We're going to have a 700-foot diameter concrete launch pad. So if you haven't ever seen 2+ football fields of concrete, come out and take a look at it in 2 weeks? I think we're going to pour it in the next couple of weeks. So it's being treated as an aviation facility, has to meet all the other requirements, their launches, and other people who launch there have to meet FAA requirements. But this is a great synergy for the region. We already have Raytheon engaged. We have another company that's been talking to Worldview to co-locate out there. So this was our goal, was to create a magnet to start pulling in aerospace-oriented companies, and we're being successful. This is the site plan. It's north is to the right, and the launch pad you can see is quite large. The manufacturing building and offices are right along the Aerospace Parkway. I'll turn it over to Jane. She's got a lot more fun things to talk about, but I felt it might be good for you to have an understanding of what's going on in the region, what we're trying to do from a utility standpoint, and master planning this area.
John, real quick, you didn't happen to mention Mariposa in the SR 7179 entrance, which is a big deal, but I guess we got some money out of the state legislature for that.
That's correct. And all of us, I go to the State Transportation Board meeting, which is tomorrow, up at Flagstaff this month, and we all, as a region, support State Route 189, because this is a funnel. You got all these lanes, 24 lanes at Mariposa, and it dumps into 2 lanes, multiple traffic lights, and so that's really a priority to move this traffic out of there. So the city, the county, PAG, all of us are supporting State Route 189. The legislature, part of the issue was the solution is probably a $120 million solution. ADOT had about $64 million planned. The legislature put some money in to finish the planning and also to try to get more. They were in DC last week working on additional funding for that. So that's a critical, it's kind of like the gateway. You want your entrance to be polished up and working well, and that's what we're all trying to do for them.
Hi there. John, thank you. I will say it has been an absolute joy and an honor to work with John and Chuck and everyone at Pima County. They really have been fantastic to work with through this process. So thank you so much for your collaboration, because I truly think of this as a partnership, and it's awesome. It's the kind of public-private partnership that I think is being done in the right way, and I really appreciate the way that Pima County is going about it. So, awesome. So, Tucson, gateway to the stars. This is awesome. So we've been talking about a lot of east, west, north, south. What about up, down? We're not very far from the top of the atmosphere, which is pretty cool to think about. It's way closer than Phoenix. Just a little harder to get there, except perhaps in rush hour. So, most of us, I think, have heard about Worldview in the context of space tourism. That's been out there. We've been talking about it for a long time, and it is something that is an incredible opportunity, and it's a very exciting market, but it is only a very small part of the charter of our company. And we certainly are anticipating to fly our space tourism flights out of Tucson. We've already done test flights out of Page. So we're already flying from all over Arizona. But what I really wanted to take a few minutes to talk about this morning was another application of these high-altitude balloons, and what is also incredibly exciting to be able to really bring to the market a whole new kind of vehicle. We think about satellites zooming around the planet at 17,500 miles an hour, and they're 100 plus miles above the surface of the Earth. Then we think about drones that are persistent. They can stay over an area, but generally speaking, for only a short period of time, and generally speaking, at fairly low altitudes. So with a Stratolite, though, we get the best of both worlds. We get to be up near space, so we get that incredible vantage point that you get when you're that high. You can see over mountains. You can see a large footprint on the ground. And we also get to be persistent, but for an extended period of time. Our plans are to have these up there for months at a time, eventually as long as a year. And so this opens up the door to enormous applications. And this is, of course, why Raytheon is so interested in what we're doing, and we're also extremely excited to be working with Raytheon. It's an incredible opportunity for us to work on this new vehicle and bring it to market right here in Tucson. So before I talk a bit more about that, let me just tell you a little bit about the team. So as was said earlier, Taylor McCallum and I came out of the Biosphere 2 project. We were on the design team. We then were inside for the first mission, 2 years and 20 minutes, inside Biosphere 2. Not that anyone is counting. And we did indeed start Paragon. Paragon incubated Worldview. So this is truly a Tucson-grown company. We then spun that out from Paragon, and now Grant Anderson, who was also a co-founder of Paragon, whom some of you may know, is now taken over the reins of Paragon and is doing great things with that company. So we're very excited for that. Now we're also, a co-founder of the business is astronaut Mark Kelly. He is not involved in the day-to-day of the business. He is plays a very important role in our company. He's one of the few people who, we send stuff to space all the time, but none of us have actually been to space. So that's a very important vantage point. Alan Stern was another co-founder, and if you have seen recently incredible imagery coming back from Pluto, he is the principal investigator of that mission. So no slouch by any means. He has an incredible ability to understand robotic missions, right? So what we're talking about today is really the robotic missions of our business. So Mark brings the human spaceflight side of it, and Alan brings the robotic missions, the uncrewed, the no human missions, if you will. Tony DeBona, an important player in the company, our CFO, steeped in Silicon Valley, been there for 25 years, raised over billions of dollars himself. Very, very cool to have him involved. And Sebastian Padilla led a very important mission in the history of Worldview, which I'm going to talk about just for a second. So StratX was a project that we did and completed in October of 2014. Now, you may have heard of the Red Bull Stratos jump. Well, you probably didn't hear about the StratX jump that the Google executive Alan Eustace performed because we didn't want anyone to know about it. We didn't want lots of press coverage for safety reasons, for all kinds of reasons. He didn't want lots of press coverage to protect his family and Google. So really, the only people who knew about it was the New York Times on the day that it happened. And for 3 years, our team developed a brand new spacesuit for the first time in America for like 30 years. A new spacesuit was tested and flown. We took him up. We did 3 human flights underneath the balloon. You'll notice that he is hanging from the balloon. He is not in a capsule. It may sound counterintuitive, but that's actually a lot safer than him because he's jumping out, not because he's sitting in it. Because he's jumping out, it actually is simpler and safer not to have all the complication of the capsule. And so we took him up. We did 3 flights where we eventually got up to 136,000 feet. A long way up there. And I'm going to show you a really quick, oh, and this is the team. So this team, now what's important about, for Worldview, why this was so important for us, we don't have space diving in our business model. We are not going to be doing space diving. Way too dangerous. But it really trained our team in high altitude ballooning, and it gave us the underpinnings of our technology. We own all the technology that came from this project, which is huge for us because there was a lot of technology development that happened during this whole entire endeavor. So I'm going to show you a really quick video. This is the space dive, the final one. So you'll see the balloon there. That's about a 400-foot long balloon. It's about the same size of the balloon that we will use actually to take the capsule up. There he is in his spacesuit, hanging from underneath the balloon. That white rope that you see is actually balloon. When it's launched, there's just a bubble of helium. And then as it goes up to altitude, that entire thing becomes full of helium and circular. So there he is on his way up. You can see it's a very, very gentle way up. So now he's released, and he's doing a backflip, and he's basically in free fall. He's going to fall for almost 5 minutes. He breaks the speed of sound, and we could hear the sonic boom on the ground. And now he is about 12,000 feet above the ground. He opens his parafoil and comes in for actually his best landing. Because remember, he's got 250 pounds of life support system on his front. So, yeah. He's in a roll cage, he's in an airbag, he's okay. So that was the StratX. That was, it was an incredible thing, and it was a great honor to be a part of that. And I will say that the technology, the spacesuit, and some of the other hardware from this jump is now, it's going to be on permanent exhibit at the Smithsonian Institution, which is incredibly cool. The types of things that we can do with our new Stratolite system, we've taken this technology from the space dive, and now we've put a whole load of new innovations on it. We're bringing out this year this new model of Stratolite, and the kinds of things that we can do about it, if you can think about getting something up quickly and being there, eyes in the sky, ears in the sky, for a long time. First response and disaster recovery. Imagine if we had had something up in the sky during Katrina, something like that, right? People are standing on their roofs with their cell phones. They don't have a sat phone. They don't know how to get any information. We could have saved lives if you had something like this up there at that time. Maritime and border security. If you've got a balloon up there, there's a bazillion miles of borders around the world that could use some persistent eyes in the sky. Internet delivery. Some of you may have heard of the Google Loon project, which is actually a project to use high-altitude balloons to deliver internet to areas that are in very remote locations. It's a different kind of system from ours, but it is a similar idea in that they're using these balloons, these Stratolites, to provide this type of a service. Improved weather forecasting. You might go, well, don't we have gobs and gobs of weather data? Well, yeah, we do, but what's really fascinating is that when you think about the weather that happens over the land, we send up lots and lots of weather balloons over the land. We send up almost zero over the ocean, and over the ocean is where a lot of the major weather starts. So if you could have these stratolytes circulating over the oceans, you could get a heads up on weather much faster than you could waiting for the land-based systems to give you that in situ information. Research at the edge of space. Lots and lots of research to be done up there. Of course, looking out, you can look out at the heavens, looking out at the stars, look out at the sun. You can really look into deep, deep space from up there because you are above 99% of the atmosphere. Think of it as the Hubble, but not way out in deep space. You can also look down, and because you're at the top of the atmosphere, you can kind of dip down into the atmosphere. We can do altitude control, so we can come down into the atmosphere and then go back up again. So there's a huge array of things that we could do with research, and we're in a lot of really exciting discussions. So this is a beautiful Arizona sunrise that was from a launch that we did out of Benson not too long ago. And this is a photograph taken at altitude. So we're a flight services provider. And so we can loiter over an area. That is to say, the Stratolyte can stay over an area of interest. We can circumnavigate the globe. Or we can also kind of do waypoint navigation. You can tell us where to go. We use the upper stratospheric winds. And it turns out the winds go in all different directions at different altitudes. So we ride the winds to go where we want to go. You're not going to get there fast because this thing goes at 100 miles an hour. It doesn't go at 17,500 miles an hour, but that's also what gives you the ability to have persistence over an area. So classic flight services, this is the traditional balloons. In fact, if you go online today, you can see a NASA flight flying over Australia. They currently are doing a science mission with a balloon right now. And this is the kind of thing that's been done for decades. And we're already doing it, and we already have customers for this as well. And so we've flown, as I said earlier, we've flown out of airports all around Arizona. And it's very exciting. We work with NASA and universities and Northrop Grumman and various other organizations for this. And then we also do, I love this picture because it's integration services. Yeah, we're just integrating a guy in a spacesuit. All right, so we are indeed the only full-service stratospheric flight services company, which is kind of cool, right here from Tucson. And that is another picture of a launch. And that is, oh, and we also design and manufacture our own balloons. So this is a balloon that was pressure tested in TCC. It was kind of fun. The whole team took the balloon out, and we actually used the stadium there to do a pressure test because it was big enough for the balloon. So that was cool. And we are standing up quite a fantastic manufacturing team. This is an area that is going to be growing very rapidly in our business. Our operations and manufacturing is where we're very excited to be hiring pretty rapidly. Then, oh, this is a cool picture, just threw a balloon out to the curvature of the Earth. So what I thought I'd do also is show you now, this is a quick video of what we call short flight. Now, this is a 1,000-pound payload. It could have been anything. What we chose to fly was what's called an aerodynamic and mass simulator, which basically means it's a fake capsule that simulates the capsule, but at small scale. So this is a 1,000-pound capsule covered in instrumentation that we are flying to the edge of space. And we don't have the pretty music, but that's okay. So it took, oh, here we are, we're over Grand Canyon. We launched this from Page. Spectacular view over Lake Powell. It was really fun to launch from there, just see the views from up there. And then we are here about to fly down from space. And our team is the first and only team in the world to actually fly a parafoil at 100,000 feet. And that's important because we go up under the balloon, and here we are flying now. Now we're flying. We've detached from the balloon, and it's flying. And here it is coming into land. And what's important about this, not only do you come down gently, but you can get a lot of cross range, so you can have pinpoint landings. So we can determine where we're going to land. We're not just at the whims of the wind of where it is we're going to land. We know where we're going to land. And of course, that's rather important. Mission control and all of that. So we're going to have a mission control in our new building. This is some of our team doing so we got new renderings last night. So this is the building. We are very excited that our facility is right outside the South Gate. This was really important for us. It's very cool. Raytheon on the other side of Spaceport. We're envisioning that their payloads come out the South Gate. We manufacture the balloons in our facility. We march them out to the launch pad and we launch them together. All right, so this is our facility. This is the worldview and the gateway to the Spaceport Tucson. And so the little box, you're like, what is that giant red tower? So the giant red tower, so everything in this building has a use, very, very particular use. So that giant red tower is because that's how we service the parafoils, the parawing, the thing that we fly down under. We need a long tower to hang it from so we can really service it properly. And then the little red box sticking out, that's mission control. And it has a fantastic view over the launch pad. And in fact, we can also communicate very well with the tower from there. So with that, any questions?
What are the most immediate economic benefits, spin-offs, whatever that you see in the more immediate future, say in the next 3 to 5 years?
Thank you. So our business is very focused on bringing this Stratolite online this year. So as I said, we're already flying balloons, so we're already hiring Tucsonans for those operations. We're already hiring people in for manufacturing to produce the balloons for those the short flights that we talk about. But we do anticipate very accelerated growth the moment we bring that Stratolite service online. And so, of course, the immediate benefit for the community is that we are hiring. We're hiring people. We're bringing companies also from around America and, frankly, around the world to visit Tucson, to come to see what we're doing and introducing Tucson to everyone as well, which I think is something that is important to think about as well, right? We're not only members of Tucson, we're members of the global community, and we're very excited that we get to be part of an industry, as many people in this room are, that is a global industry, and that's very exciting for us. So we really get to use Tucson as a center of a global business that we anticipate will grow very rapidly in the coming years.
If I may, just one brief follow-up.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the Raytheon participation? That was certainly news to me, which I think is extremely important.
Yeah.
What that means.
I can say that there are a number of projects that we are working on together that are of great importance to our national defense. And I'm very excited to be part of that.
Where does the funding come from for this company? And the second one is, how do you interface with the Federal Aviation Agency to make sure that these return flights are not flying into an airspace for passenger flight?
Absolutely. So the first one is that we're very excited that not only do we have a world-class engineering operations sales team, we also have a world-class investor team. So you may have noticed on the what I didn't talk about on the team photograph, there were a couple of company names at the bottom. That's Canaan and Norwest. Those are two of not more investors, but those are two key investor groups that are venture funds from Silicon Valley. They are very large global investor groups, and so we're very excited to have venture funding into the business, because that's great for a whole bunch of reasons, and of course revenue. And then with regards to the FAA, so we have been working with the FAA for years now. So every time we fly from any airport, we do all kinds of coordination with the FAA. It's pretty routine now. very routine, I would say. So we coordinate with the FAA, the tower, all the way to Albuquerque. We're even communicating with folks in Mexico. We communicate with everyone who uses the airspace. So that's just a routine process now. So we have that down pretty well. Oh, and you might be interested to know that we have transponders on it. So we're very visible to everybody as well. So it's the air traffic control folks know where we are at all times.
What do you think the ultimate commercial versus space tourism, where's the greater potential for the company?
Yeah, so I think, space tourism is an incredibly vigorous market. When the Arctic and the Antarctic were opened up so that people could go, there was this huge rush to go because it was something new to see. And we're expecting the same thing with space as you're already seeing with Virgin Galactic. I mean, they've sold over 800 tickets and they don't have an operating vehicle yet, and it's $250,000 a ticket. So, there's definitely a huge global hunger to go and experience seeing the Earth from this vantage point. And that is the predominant reason people are going. We also believe that, this is we work very hard. One of the reasons that we're so excited about using this balloon technology for the space tourism side is because it is so gentle. It makes it incredibly accessible. However, I also think, though, the other parts of the business, the uncrewed, the Stratolite business, is extremely vigorous. I think most likely there are uses for this that we haven't even yet imagined, like anytime you bring on a new vehicle, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being quite significantly larger than the tourism business, though I think both are very vigorous markets.
You showed on that video where it actually flew down and it landed. So what happened to the balloon?
Oh, we have to bring it down, so it doesn't go careening around the planet. So at the moment, everything is reusable from all of our flights except the balloon. So the balloon we do actually have to destroy and bring it down.
What is the composition of the balloon, and is it puncture-proof?
So the composition of the balloon, it depends which balloons we're talking about, because we actually fly a number of different kinds of balloons, but generally speaking, there's a form of polyethylene in a very general sense. So what's really cool about these balloons is that, no, they're not puncture-proof, but if you make a hole in them, they don't just fall out of the sky. So we've done a whole bunch of different tests where we look at what happens if you get a hole in the balloon, because you always have to plan for the worst. And I mean, how you get a hole in the balloon is kind of a mystery. I don't know how you would get one, but if you get one, you need to be prepared for what would happen, right? So at the top of the balloon, there is a valve that's about this big. And that's a pretty large hole, I think we'd all agree. And we've opened the valve and just let helium, which is the gas inside that we use currently, although we'll be moving to different gases soon. We let the helium come out just as it will. Like, imagine it's a hole. And it just stays up there. I mean, it'll eventually start to come back down. But it takes quite a lot to get that balloon to come down with a hole in it.
Has there been much conversation about, again, the kinds of organizations and your service operations, so their payloads, and the attraction of those kinds of companies, and really begin to do careful strategic work to identify where there's growth opportunity for not just yourself, but all of the potential partners that could be a part of that system? Has there been much planned discussion with Sun Corridor or within the community? I'm just curious.
The answer is yes, we've worked aggressively with Sun Corridor, but we really created this concept because a lot of people don't know that Tucson has over 200, almost 250 aerospace companies. And there's a supply chain opportunity for Raytheon, but these companies also need to grow and have a place to expand and that sort of thing. So that was the reason we named it the way we did, was at the Aerospace and Defense Business, but it's also Business and Research Park, because as they're doing research, we also see components. The university has talked to us, we coordinate with them all the time. So yes, we envision the supply chain piece, but having this proximity to the airport, which is so key, it is also important. One thing I would also point out is the airport is building a brand-new control tower on the south side of the airport, which, as Jane clearly said, Mission Control sees that, but they can clearly see everything that's going on in this launch pad. All this is coordinated. One other thing is that we're blessed. One of the reasons that Davis-Monthan is so successful and the Barry Goldwater Range is successful is there is very little transcontinental aircraft, commercial aircraft traffic over this area. It's almost all north of us. And so if you look at a map of the transcontinental aircraft routes, you see a hole, kind of a triangle that Tucson's in. Obviously, they fly in here, but there's that whole thing is a draw for this kind of industry.
I don't know anything about your fuel source.
Yes.
How abundant is helium? Where does it come from?
Yeah, so actually helium is a byproduct of natural gas exploration. But I will say we will be moving to different gases. So in that sense, from our point of view, it's kind of a moot point because we're not intending to use helium forever and ever anyway. We're going to be moving, at least in part, to hydrogen. So then everyone goes, oh my God, hydrogen is going to blow up. Actually, that's a complete fallacy. It's fascinating. It's rather unfortunate. One of the reasons that we use helium and not hydrogen is purely optics. It is completely safe. So the immediate thing people think of when they hear the word hydrogen is the Hindenburg, right? Big fire and everybody died and it was dreadful. But it had very little to do with the hydrogen. Ultimately, the hydrogen burned, but it burned ultimately because, in fact, the skin of the Hindenburg was painted in an accelerant. And so when there was a spark, the accelerant caught on fire, which then caught the skin of the entire thing on fire. And then eventually, once the skin was all burning, sure, you got oxygen getting into the hydrogen, there was a conflagration. But we've actually done, because our guys, they got to see it for themselves. They went and they did a bunch of anecdotal testing just to make sure that this thing was safe, and they tried to burn a balloon with hydrogen in it. And instead, the hydrogen blew out the fire source. So this is actually really hard. So there's a long way of saying we'll be going to hydrogen. And the great news about hydrogen is that we can then create it in situ. You can have a hydrogen production system that then, if you're out in wherever you are, in some remote location, you can actually make it yourself.
But whatever the instrumentation is stays attached to the balloon in order to stay up in the stratosphere. Is there a possibility that a vehicle could be designed to take off from there to go to geosynchronous orbit or to?
Actually, yes. So it has this rather unfortunate name of Rockoon. So people have looked at this for a couple of decades, and it absolutely is feasible. We have not chosen that path. It's a fairly crowded market. So we're not looking at that at the moment. Certainly it is something feasible in the future. We certainly would not want to do that probably from Spaceport Tucson because you're launching rockets. And I don't think we want to be launching rockets from right there. But it certainly is something that one can do, yes.
John, what's the status of the lawsuit or the challenge by the Goldwater Institute?
Well, the building continues to move forward aggressively. We're on a very fast track. As I said, we're pouring footers and foundations and everything. The county continues to move forward. We have submitted a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago now, a motion to dismiss on all 6 counts. Goldwater had 10 days to respond to that, so that we're pretty much inside that window now, so it's up to the judge to decide. We plan to move forward. They filed an injunction to try to stop some of this, and at this point in time, we've already spent like $6 million. So it's going to be pretty hard for the judge to come back and say, well, no, you can't do this. The worst outcome that we see is that the county, not Worldview, we may get our hands slapped for some process, but, I mean, we went into this thing with the attorney sitting right by my side and Chuck's side. And this gal is very smart on Turkin and that law. And, I mean, we have examples all over Maricopa County, which we submitted to the court as well as to the press, because the Goldwater folks, and I'm not knocking them, but this seems to be tried in the courts. The newspaper and the media are getting the information on this lawsuit 2 days before we get it. And so the short term is we continue to fight it. We will fight it, but we're going to build the building. We see no reason, unless the court all of a sudden decides to drop an injunction in, but if they do that and then we win the lawsuit, they have to pay our damages. So Goldwater could be on the hook for $5 million or more at this point.
Quick question about staffing. Are you able to find the talent that you need locally? Or?
Yes and no. So certainly in the areas of manufacturing and probably in operations, in most of the operations, I would say yes. We have some specialized job descriptions, I guess I would say, some specialized skills that are needed that are very hard to find here, which isn't really that surprising. So we certainly do have engineers in particular coming from elsewhere. But generally speaking, our manufacturing and that type of position, we certainly hope and expect to fill locally.
We're seeing more and more aerospace firms and servicing supply chain activity, in Mexico, in Guaymas, in Palme,
Right.
And some other locations. I assume somebody's having some communication in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly talking with various groups in Mexico. I wouldn't say that we're looking to send work over the border just yet. We're certainly pretty focused on keeping that right here. Now, will some folks come from there up to here to take these jobs? I don't know, but we're certainly focused on the local environment right here in Pima County. Yeah.
One of the folks that works for me is actually focused on Mexico. We are in the Maquiladora trade shows. There's one in Hermosillo, the one in Nogales. We actually have recruited. There's a robotics company that is moving to Tucson, going to locate at the tech park that we recruited. We work in conjunction with the city. We actually have an office in the Visit Tucson office in Hermosillo. And the city and the county go down as a team and we go out and we're what I call we're pitching. We're going after these and trying to bring some of these companies up here because number one, there's a lot of growth in the aerospace industry. Number two, supply chain is critical in many areas. So we're really working that area. It's a very rapidly growing area. The stat that we hear on these Fords that come across the border from Hermosillo, parts of that car have been across the border 9 times, different trips, because a lot of work gets done here. The other thing is in the aerospace industry, certain components of aircraft need to be assembled in the U.S. to fly in the U.S. So we're real close. They're building them right on the other side of the border. Why don't we do that part? So that's what we're doing.
How many employees do you currently have, and how many do you anticipate having once you're fully staffed, and are they all in Tucson? And then a second question, you talked about a company that sold 800 tickets at $250,000. How many tickets have you guys sold, and at what price?
So in terms of employees, we're about 50 people right now. We expect to be at least 400 people in the coming years. Let's see, the ticket price is $75,000 a ticket. And we are not disclosing the number of tickets that we have sold. However, we have sold them to people all around the world. We don't really have a ticket sales process at this point. It's all incoming. We're a little early. We're not taking quite the same approach as some of these other companies have, which is the moment they stick up their shingle, they start trying to sell tickets. We're really not doing that. We want to be much further along before we really start taking people's money. But we do have people from all around the world. We actually have families have brought tickets, which is kind of cool. And right now what they do is they put a deposit down, just a small deposit to kind of say, hey, I'm really interested. I want to stand in line.
How much venture funding have you guys received? Can you tell us that?
I can, because it was in the papers. So we did, we did a seed and an A round in, gosh, time is flying, 14. And that was 7.1. And we recently just closed to 15 million.
What about this venture made it necessary to use the county's borrowing power versus to go to the alternatives, whether it was to the venture capital
Right.
market or basically as lenders or banks?
So from our point of view, I'm sure John has an opinion on this as well. So let me say my part of this first before I hand it over to him. So, we were doing a national location search of where we wanted to be. And we were being aggressively pursued by Florida, in particular, and New Mexico. There were other states also that we were looking at going to. And there were, of course, like any business, there's a whole variety of things that we're looking at. And fundamentally, financial, that's a really important part for our business, right? So we were extremely excited that Pima County stepped forward with this offer because it was the linchpin that allowed us to grow our business here. If we didn't have this deal with John and Chuck and the other folks and the governor, we would not be here. We would be in Florida or New Mexico. So from our point of view, it was, we were thrilled that this came up because we did want to be here for, I've been here for nearly 30 years. We did want to be here. There are a lot of practical reasons that we wanted to be here, but we also needed to do what was best for the business. And Florida and New Mexico put up a hell of a fight.
Is this a cheaper form of capital than the alternatives, or was just the fact that your capital structure required basically public financing to build a facility?
Well, it's a public-private partnership, right? So from that point of view, absolutely it's beneficial for us. And the kinds of public-private partnerships that were coming from Florida and New Mexico, frankly, in some regards, were more aggressive. But we took this because it had some great strategic aspects to it that we didn't get in New Mexico and Florida.
The rest of it is essentially, Jane said it pretty well, we were in a competitive situation. And it's hard to compete with free. And Florida had federal money to repurpose the Kennedy Space Center. And they had buildings already built and those kind of things that we were having to compete with. So we had to step up and find a way to get this done. It's a good business deal. We get our money back. We've got a good revenue stream and that sort of thing. So we felt it was a good opportunity.